It is January 3rd, 2023. This is Reality Stretch. I am your host, Spencer Ingram. Let's stretch reality together. All right, this will basically be the one of the shortest podcasts that I've ever done because I slept through my alarm and I have things I need to go do this morning. But happy third day of the new year. I hope that you are making your goals and resolutions. I know I am. Had some fun ideas in the sandbox the other day. So my sisters own and operate an Irish dance school that's called Irish Dance Idaho, and I want to make Irish dance videos. And my sister just gave me access to use their channel to do that, which I'm excited about because it's a really cool channel, and I made the logo for it. So of course I'm biased that I think the content should be spectacular. So right now, one of my things in my sandbox and one of my goals is I'm planning a video where I'll use like four different planes, four different views of the same step, all recorded at once, and just play it over each other, play it over itself like that, and like choreograph the step and design the step so that all the steps work together. So anyway, that's just what I've been thinking about in the sandbox. Since the sandbox and the traditional intent of it is to basically take what I've been thinking about that could distract me from my daily tasks and write it down in a note to discuss the next morning. So in the traditional intent for which the sandbox was created, that's what's in my sandbox right now. I started thinking about, hey, what would I do? And then the steps started playing in my head that I would want to create. Choreographing Irish dance steps is one of my great joys in life. It's just fun. It's just I enjoy it very much. Anyway, so I want to pull a quick thing out of the sandbox today, that was from yesterday, and a throwback to what would this have been, like critical thinking or English 101, wherever you learn how to, philosophy, I don't know. I feel like metaphor versus simile versus analogy. Metaphor, I brought this up yesterday, so a little bite for us today. Let's try to analogy. I brought this up, so let's find out. What's the difference between a metaphor, simile, and analogy? Let's find something that is from a recognized languagehumanities.org. What the heck? Let's give it a shot. Whoa. Is this what kind of a site is this? You think if something has .org listed, it might be more reputable? Because it gives the impression that it's like an organization. But the copyright is updated to 2023. So that means it must be in use. What do we know about this site? languagehumanities.org. Is it a cool site? I don't know. Maybe it is. Looks like it's just kind of like a glorified blog. Anyway, let's see what we think about its content. All right. While analogy and simile are both comparisons of two seemingly unrelated things, they are not the same. A simile is a figure of speech, while an analogy is a type of argument. A simile is also a type of metaphor, while an analogy is not. That's it, guys. It's clear now. I got it. We're good. This is why this stuff never sticks in my head, because very, very useful, I guess. Generally, an analogy is more complex than a simile. Another key difference between the two is that similes in English use either as or like to make their comparison. A simile is usually structured in one of two ways. A figure of speech can use the word like to compare two items. An example using like is, her hair shone like the sun. Hair and the sun usually are not considered the same, but the simile describes them as shining in a similar manner. An example of a simile using as is, his teeth were white as clouds. Whereas white as clouds. In that simile, the man's teeth are compared to the color of clouds. So, like, if I say, if I say, I don't know, shoot, man. What, I was trying to think of something funny. The only thing that came to mind is something about peanut butter. But what's funny about that? Peanut butter is rich and creamy, like hang on. I don't know. Yeah, changed my mind. And now, okay, let's go. So, like or as is a simile that is a type of metaphor, but an analogy is not a type of metaphor. Okay, analogies are used to make a connection between two objects or ideas to better explain the first object. For example, a short type of analogy is coffee is to caffeine as beer is to alcohol. I mean, that is an example, but can't they pick a better example? Coffee and beer are both beverages, and caffeine and alcohol are the drugs they contain. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Never mind. I was thinking of that as more of a possession or a subset, right? Like coffee is to caffeine as beer is to alcohol. Like, I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, they're both drinks, and then the other ones are the drugs they contain. So, never mind. It does make sense. I was thinking like more of a possession or subset. Like, is coffee a subset of caffeine? Is beer a subset of alcohol? And like, no one really like. Yeah, no, I guess it actually works. But anyway, the point is, in some instances, it may be difficult to determine the connection between the two items. Another key difference between an analogy and a simile is that a simile is a type of metaphor. A metaphor compares one thing to another by stating that the first thing is equal to the second. Her hair is the sun is a metaphor, while a simile simply states that her hair shines like the sun. The first thing is equal to the second. That's a metaphor. And an analogy and simile also differ in that an analogy could be far more complex than a simile. True. Okay. So it has to have like and as to be a simile. Like or as. We should come up with some good good examples of each, shall we? Maybe I'll put that. Maybe I'll write like a Substack article on it tomorrow. I'm gonna I'm gonna put in the sandbox. Where is the sandbox? Sandbox. Here it is. Let me start my daily sandbox today. Oops. I hit the wrong button. Jumped around on my document, as one does. It's because freaking numlock isn't engaged. Trying to type a date, it's jumping all over the page. I know people can relate to that. A few select people. All right. So, write a Substack on analogy, simile, and metaphors with examples. Fun. And then the other thing I was thinking about was the Irish dance video. Well, let's get organized, man. Let's get organized. Let's have a great new year. I'm so stoked. I'm so stoked about the new year. I hope everyone else is too. Well, this has been a less than 15-minute podcast. Accurately use an analogy, a metaphor, and a simile. And I surely hope that this site is reputable. Let's see here. languagehumanities.org. Let's look at this one, why not? Copyblogger.com. The rest of these are all services that you can pay for, I assume. Yes, that just have blogs written about these things. Metaphors can be powerful persuasion tools. This is written by Brian Clark. Hello, Brian Clark. Posted in 2020. All right. Good SEO, Brian. Your organization, Copyblogger, was top of the Google search that I made. So you are blogging properly. A metaphor is a figure of speech that uses one thing to mean another and makes a comparison between the two. A simile compares two different things in order to create a new meaning. An analogy is comparable to metaphor and simile in that it shows how two different things are similar, but it's a bit more complex. That's a summary. That is a summary, indeed. I feel like that was harder to parse than the last source. So I give the other site points for simplicity. All right, but let's give this guy more chance. Let's give Brian more chance to delve further into these topics real quick. Metaphor. Remember, metaphors use one thing to mean another. So when someone says, he's become a shell of a man, we know not to take this literally, even though it's stated directly as if this person had actually lost his internal substance. He's one shell of a man. Is that what he was saying? No? I might start saying that. You're one shell of a guy. Simile. In the cases of similes, we are made explicitly aware that a comparison is being made due to the use of like or as. He's like a shell of a man. For fun, the next time someone corrects you and says that's a simile, not a metaphor, you can respond by letting them know that a simile is a type of metaphor, just like sarcasm is a type of irony. Resist the urge to be sarcastic in your delivery. Analogy. Rather than a figure of speech, an analogy is more of a logical argument. The presenter of an analogy will often demonstrate how two things are alike by pointing out shared characteristics, with the goal of showing that if two things are similar in some ways, they are similar in other ways as well. So, if I say a dog is a car, that's a metaphor. This is me thinking. But if I say a dog is like a car, then that is a simile. Or if I say a dog is as fast as a car, is that a simile or an analogy? Because you're wrapping in like verbs and actions. Or if I say a dog and a car are similar in the sense that they have 4 normal points of contact with the ground at any given time at rest. Would that be an analogy then? At what point does it cross between a metaphor? At what point does it cross between like a simile, which is a metaphor, and an analogy? Is it just on the level of detail? It's more. It says it's more of a logical argument. Thankfully, this dude Brian wrote another article on persuasive analogies. Maybe I should look those up. There are circumstances where either a simile or an analogy is the more appropriate vehicle for getting your point across, but coming up with a great metaphor may be your best bet in many situations. Why is it grouping a simile or an analogy together and then presenting metaphors separate? A metaphor carries so much more power than a simile because it's direct. Using like or as to make an open comparison will often diminish the vivid visual you're trying to paint in the reader's mind. Likewise, a spot-on metaphor will spark instant understanding for a reader without the elaboration that an analogy requires. From here, we'll examine specific ways to use metaphor in your blog posts. Headlines? Okay. Thanks for helping us with our blog, Brian Clark. Maybe if I find his tweet, I'll tweet at him. Anyway, maybe he wants to come on and talk about blogs. All right, peace out, guys. Have an amazing day today. I know I will.